In the beginning of the Troubles, as protests broke out, this was part of kind of the civil rights movement in Northern Ireland, you see state security forces at the local level, we're talking about in towns during these protests, respond in ways that were very partisan, supporting kind of loyalists who were there as counter-protesters, whether that was through letting them attack protesters, whether that was being out of uniform and participating in those counter-protests, whether it was only responding to kind of low-level violence of some protesters and not responding at all to the low-level violence of the counter-protesters. So there was a myriad kind of ways in which the state security forces were aligning with counter-protesters. And this escalated, polarized the community, really alienating the Catholic population from the state. They no longer trusted that the state was a mediator of conflict. They saw it as aligned with one side. And so what we see then is that in Dungannon in particular, the IRA radicalized and began centering their operations there with the support in a lot of ways from the community because they were so alienated and didn't trust the state. In Omagh, those same dynamics of protest didn't happen to that same extent. And so you see less of that kind of collusion taking place, and you see then kind of less radicalization taking place. And what I found is that civilian self-protection efforts actually inadvertently fueled the conflict because, the Catholic population did not trust the state. They would not give intelligence to the state. This led the IRA to having room to thrive. Loyalists also were retaliating in response to what the IRA was doing, and so you see the conflict kind of continue in this cycle of retaliation, just, in part because civilians wanted to protect themselves and those efforts. So there was no kind of organized, successful civilian protection strategy. But I think what the research shows is that what do civilians do when they have to kind of improvise in a conflict, right? And how does that fuel or impact the larger dynamics of the conflict? What it also shows is that if we can prevent that collusion, right? If states can prevent that collusion at the lower level from going on in various ways, or those moments of collusion or alignment from going on, we might be able to see the containment of conflict.